that the Adamu were being created at about 200,000 years ago. So you're right, it was an amazing corroboration of what in 1976 sounded like just an absurd claim, and yet 10 years later, biology proves that in fact it wasn't absurd at all. It was right on the money. But also, relative to the seven daughters of Eve, what Sitchin says and what the tablets say is that there was a lot of experimenting to try to get the final copy, and a lot of mistakes were made because genetic engineering on that scale is difficult. I mean, it's just, the genome itself is huge. It's 3 billion base pairs. The number of genes, 20, 30,000 genes. What do you have to do? How do you have to manipulate to make these two things that shouldn't be able to procreate, the hominoids with their 48 chromosomes and the Anunnaki with their 46? And we know that because we have 46. We're the only higher primate with 46. All the others have 48. So right. They had to do a lot of manipulating to make that happen. In the end, they produced 7 females and 7 males that were correct, and they let them breed, and it all spun off from them. Those original 7 females and those original 7 males. And then, again, according to Sitchin in 76, and then you have these geneticists showing that it comes down to about 7 different main families, genetic families. So there is another incredible corroboration of what in 1976 sounded like absolutely insane conjecture on the part of Sitchin.
And, the Bible has this account of the Nephilim coming down and actually breeding with women. But do you think there is a connection between these two theories? Because in a way we could say that, okay, maybe the Anunnaki came at first, and actually created the human race and kind of let them loose on the planet, if you will. But what the Bible is talking about is sounds more like someone actually is coming in and then afterwards is kind of, reproducing with the women of the earth at that point. Do you think these two...
Well, that's exactly what happened. Probably the Nephilim were the Anunnaki. What happened was, in terms of how many Anunnaki were on the earth, it seems, according to Sitchin, there were only a maximum of about 600. Now, that's really not that many, but whatever members of those 600, and there were males and females among the Anunnaki, but there were apparently more males than there were females to go around. So this is a hardship, assignment to come to Earth. That's a hardship assignment. That's not necessarily something you want to do. That would be the equivalent of today's the people who go out and try to, I guess, bring the religion to isolated primitive tribes or something like that.
Yeah.
It was a hard thing to do. So they wanted comforts, and one of the things that they said in the tablets is they wanted to create a slave to do their work, but also to give the gods their ease. That's another quote, to give the gods their ease, meaning to make life good for them, to cook, to clean, and mostly to have sex with them. So they made them in their own image so they could use them as slaves and servants. So once they had the slave force online, they continued to let them they taught, they made them physically able to propagate themselves and to make more of themselves. And as they did that, they chose from all that they saw those which were fair, meaning they took the ones they wanted for themselves. And that terminology comes out in Genesis, but that is, according to Sitchin and the Sumerian tablets, that's the way it unfolded over time.
Indeed. And, regarding also creators, if you will, from another world, I know that you very prominently lean on Sitchin's work on the Sumerian records to support this theory, but I think we also need to mention that there are other stories, of course, from around the world that has a very similar mythology, and some of those has to do with someone coming from the outside and giving man civilization, writing, what have you. The Hopi talks about the Kachina. The Incas has Viracocha, who was the creator of the civilization. The Mayans have Itzamna, an upper god, a creator deity, who was said to be residing in the sky. We have the Vedic text, similar records of God descending down and mating with humans. So, this isn't just, limited to the Sumerians, right?
No, it's absolutely not. It's all over the place. There's something like, I think somebody once quoted that there were about 100 to 150 creation stories that all echoed a god or gods coming down to give the locals knowledge of how to live better in their place. And it goes, from simple things like which flowers are medicinal, which plants are medicinal, what you can take to help yourself, what's healthy for you, what's bad for you, what to stay away from. Because it's hard to imagine how primitive cultures would have figured out the process of creating, say, bread out of wheat. How would somebody figure out to look at this grass and figure this can be made into a loaf? Who is going to do that? How's the first one going to think about it and make it happen? It isn't going to happen. Somebody's got to teach you how to do these fundamental things to live on this planet. And every culture passes down that it was taught to them. So it's pretty clear that that's what, we have a saying here, where there's that much smoke, there has to be some fire. And where there's that much anecdotal evidence, there has to be some truth, but science won't accept it because they have taken a position that none of that happened, and so as long as the authority position is that it never happened, you can't have UFOs acknowledged, you can't have aliens acknowledged, you can't have aliens in history acknowledged.
Right.
You can't have anything other than what the mainstream allows, and in our time and place, the mainstream allows none of that. So that's why people like you and me and the people who are listening to your show, we have knowledge that is special and kept away from the average person who doesn't make an effort to acquire the knowledge, but it's not knowledge that scientists or the mainstream government or, it's not anything they don't know, but it's something they don't want the mass of us to know. So it becomes our job, just as it always has been the job of iconoclasts through history, like Alfred Wegener that I told you about relative to plate tectonics, and there are many other examples of that. It's up to us to get the word out as best we can to our friends and those we know or those who have open minds. There's a lot of people that don't want to know, that
That's
just
right.
do not want to know this stuff, and I know you have friends that way too. When you try to talk to them about these kinds of subjects, they tune off. A switch just turns and they don't want to hear it.
That's right.
They're happy and comfortable with the lie, and most people are happy and comfortable with the lie because it doesn't make them have to think too hard, because that's what these realities that we're talking about mean. They mean a complete reassessment of everything we think we know, and most people just don't want to bother with that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I want to ask you a little bit also about the time frame here, if you will, because if we think about the official story as it goes right now, then we have this idea that about 6,000 years ago, civilization, as it were, kind of appeared. We talked about this, that we're told that this happened in Sumeria and Babylonia, and there are certainly other theories out there that suggest otherwise, of course, but writing, art, and other skills seems to pop up in this area and a few other areas actually at the same time. But there is about 194,000 years between when the Anunnaki made us, according to the Sumerian record, and then when civilizations begin to kind of pop up. So there's a long time frame there when what the heck has been going on there. We could have great civilizations that kind of rise and fall in the middle here. Any theories about this at all, Lloyd?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that Atlantis might be one of those advanced civilizations that rose and fell. But you're right, there is a lot of time. But now, keep in mind, the fact that the Anunnaki created the Adamu around 200,000 years ago does not mean that they were exactly us as we are today. I think that they were more like the Cro-Magnons. That was basically the Cro-Magnons. Us as we are today needed a little bit of tweaking, and I think that tweaking might have come either naturally at around 70,000 years ago and thereafter. That was by the way, that bottleneck was caused by a volcanic eruption in Indonesia. We were talking about the hobbits at a place called Toba Inlet. The Toba the Toba volcano, supposedly that was right at 70,000 years ago, and it was the last great sort of quasi-extinction event. A lot of animals did die out, large mammals in North America, and a number of other things happened to take out a lot of creatures, and also it bottlenecked a lot of them, meaning it brought their numbers way down. So that may have happened. There are other arguments that we didn't become who or what we are till around 50,000 years ago, so there may have been some more genetic tinkering at that point. But if they were going to do it, the time to do it would be when we were reduced greatly in numbers, I would think, so it would make it easier for them to build us back up in a better way, if indeed that's what happened. But also, too, there's a program here in the States, and I'm sure it'll come to Sweden if it hasn't already. It's called Life Without Humans, or Earth Without Humans. I think it's Earth Without Humans.
I've seen that,
It's looking at what the Earth would be like if humans were just suddenly to be completely wiped out tomorrow. What would it be like? And it shows how long it takes for things to just fall apart. And really, in only about 1,000 years, there is not much sign of us at all. I mean, it's just amazing. You think all the skyscrapers in New York and all this, it's amazing how fast that stuff, relatively speaking, just disintegrates. The steel, the concrete, the roads, it all goes away. It's really an amazing documentary. If you can, if your listeners can keep an eye out for it, I think it's called Earth Without Humans, and it's about, just what I said. It's really interesting. So that being the case, if just in a few thousand years there's just no trace, that then throws us into the territory of Michael Cremo in his book Forbidden Archaeology, because if you don't know about Michael Cremo, you really need to, because his book Forbidden Archaeology talks about what are called OOPARTs, which is OOPARTS, out-of-place artifacts, OOPARTs. And there's literally hundreds of them that go back literally millions of years. Millions of years. Now, that's considerably more than 200,000, so anything leaving OOPARTs 2 or 3 million years ago is not a human being. It's something else on the planet, something else here that is of a very high sophistication, leaving, gold chains and things like that are found in coal seams. That it's just so Earth could easily have a history that we can't even begin to imagine, of the number of high cultures that might have been here and have since faded away to nothing, leaving only very small parts of themselves that are occasionally found and create these great mysteries like you find in Michael Cremo's Forbidden Archaeology.
Indeed. Michael does incredible research, and we did a program with Michael as well, so check that out in our archives. Brilliant stuff. And, I was also thinking about this idea of the many people talk about the worldwide cataclysms that might have occurred. This article from CNN who talked about this mitochondrial DNA mentioned that a small portion of humans were left in southern Africa. But they, again, another theory that kind of might connect with that idea is that this happened because of a large cataclysm. People are also, of course, talking about that an object did come in to our solar system. We can even supplant Nibiru on top of this, I guess, that this was an incoming object that was creating incredible havoc in our solar system. We had global cataclysms, a lot of humans died off, and consequently we had to kind of rebuild from there, and potentially even a great civilization at that point might have fallen. What do you think about an idea like that, Lloyd?
Are you talking about at 70,000 years or at another time?
I mean, many people talk that this might have happened in cyclical periods. So this is something that happens, again and again in a way. But basically, we get back.
There's no doubt that there have been 5 major catastrophic events that have wiped out anywhere from 50 to 90% of all life. Those are well documented in the fossil record. There have been a dozen what are called minor. I don't know how you call a catastrophic event minor, but they're considered minor relative to the major, in which you lose anywhere from 10 to 50% of all life forms. So